So I got started in this industry, probably about 7 years now. But like you said, my youngest son, I have three boys, but my youngest son has learning and attention issues. And he was transitioning from high school to that next level. We really weren't sure what it was going to be, whether it was just going to be, was it going to be college? Was it going to be employment? Was it going to be another kind of independent living program? But he wanted to go to college. So at that time, I was very involved with the Learning Disability Association of America, and I was a member of CHAD. And I got to know a lot of experts from going to conferences, and I talked to many colleges that would help a kid like my son be successful. So it was around that time that I decided to also go to a summer institute that an organization called IECA, Independent Educational Consulting Association, was offering. And I got some training there on how to help kids like my son. And I did go through that process with him. And he ended up going to a college. But at that time, I got super involved with LDA, became their president for a couple of years. And then came COVID. So things slowed down. And so during COVID, I decided to go get a certification in college admissions counseling. And so I did. I just finished that with the University of California at Riverside. It was an online program. And, we did a deep dive into that college counseling process, making that list, essays, financial aid planning, the career counseling strategies. And also we looked at some of the ethical issues involved. You may know about some of these things that happened with the college admissions, scandal that went on. So now I have a caseload of students, and I'm really excited to be guiding them through this process. We've been applying. In fact, before I got on with you, one of my students just hit that submit button to a college. She actually is up in the Northeast. So I don't just work with students here in the Dallas area, because now that, Zoom is so prevalent, I work with them anywhere. And in fact, I think they kind of prefer it because it can be at their own time, at their own pace. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So really, really enjoying it.
Well, I think it's a kudos to you and congratulations on your recent certification.
Thank you.
That is, again, like I said, Beth and I have gone back several years, and I've just been in awe of her continual training and her pursuit for knowledge in order to help young adults achieve the success that not only do they want, but they're capable of. Mm-hmm. And, in working with the LD and the attention issues, Beth, what would you say? What would be your top 3 to 5 recommendations for students searching for that next step?
I would say the first one is to try and understand yourself. And you can do that. I help them do that by taking some career inventories and assessments. For our kids with LD, ADHD, and on the spectrum, it's really important to take career assessments that are not just interest inventories. Many of our kids will take those interest inventories, and it comes out that says they're gonna, they want to be a police officer, or they want to, work with animals or something like that. And those are fine careers to pursue, but they may not be what they're actually good at. So I give an assessment through U-Science that combines their aptitudes, what they're innately good at, and skills with their interest. And it helps to define a lot about them, how they work, what is their work approach, what are their interpersonal skills. And it actually helps put some adjectives to them so that we can actually create a resume around that. Or if we're doing an application, a college application, we can describe them in words that they may not have used themselves because they may not have really known that was them. So that's been really good. I'd say that if the student's interested in college, I also give them another assessment that helps to define how ready they are, what their independent living skills are, what their social emotional skills are. So understanding yourself is really important for that first step to know where to go. And then I'd say finding ways to get some hands-on learning experience, either by volunteering or even just talking to professionals in the field. What do you do? What does a veterinarian do? They may find out that there's some things about a veterinarian that they may not want to do. So those are always good ways. And then I say another recommendation would be learning about those executive function readiness skills, time management. Where are those gaps to help the student with those skills? And if they don't have them yet, and as we've talked many times, Tammy, that our kids they may be 17, but chronologically they're not. So they're 14, 15. And so they're not really quite ready. So that's when a gap year might come into play, going either taking a gap year that's more of a program, or taking a gap year where, they're actually working on some of those skills. We need to understand what supports they're going to need when they do get that job. They need to be ready to self-advocate. That's going to be super important in college and super important on the job. And then we also need to remember that old adage, if at first you don't succeed, try again. They need to have that grit to be able to say, okay, this didn't work, but I'm going to pick myself back up and I'm going to try something else. So I'd say those are my top 5. There's more that we can talk about, but those are probably my top 5 to get started.
Okay, those are excellent, Beth, and I want to touch on that just a little bit. One, knowing yourself, that's huge. But what you talked about was, and this is so important too, because when I'm working with students and helping them to understand how the brain works, and also working with the parents, in meeting them chronologically, as you mentioned, chronologically, they're one age, developmentally, they're another age. Mm-hmm. And so meeting them where they're at is crucial. Mm-hmm. And that comes in to the executive functioning skills, building that. Excuse me. So this came into another question I had. What do you recommend for parents that want to help their children and their students? And maybe, you've heard the term of the helicopter parent, where the parent is doing everything. So what's the compromise? What's the middle ground that the parent can help guide, and yet the student has some skin in the game?
Well, in high school, it would be to, just starting to not get them up in the morning, to help them, set their alarm and to find ways to get themselves up in the morning to go to school. I mean, that's so many of us, go in, Johnny, time to get up. But, that would be a good first step. You're going to need that when you go off to school. You're going to need that for a job. Not all jobs start not all jobs or classes start at 2:00 in the afternoon. They have to get up and be in an 8:00 class. So you need to know how to get yourself up. So I would say starting in high school would be a really good time to put some of those systems in place. Reminders, using your phone, using apps that would help them with reminders, using a calendar on your phone. Or I actually have one that I really like. Can't see it because I have a virtual background on, but it's called a planner pad organizer. I have to share that with you at another point because it's a really good organizer, which helps to break down the tasks so they're not so overwhelming. This is what I need to do this week. Take that. This is what I need to do this day. This is what I need to do this hour.
Yeah.
So breaking it down. I think, it's just repetition on all of that to help so that those are things that they will do just on every day because it's something that they do, not because they're being told to do it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so true. So true. And I'm glad that you touched on that. And I just want to touch on this, what you mentioned, grit, that resiliency, that growth. How do we encourage our students to do that? How do we encourage that?
Well, I think it starts at an early age. If we're going to be preparing them to leave the nest, this starts way back in elementary school. And I think we need to let our kids not be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And I mean, fail gently. I'm not saying fail and not let them, we need to let them fail and then help pick them up. But, it's okay if we don't get a good grade on something. What did we learn from that? I'd like, as far as the planning process, I like to say that we need to start in middle school, especially for our kids. And we need to build up that throughout the high school years. So I always, for my son, would, most of our kids have IEPs or 504s. I think it's really important to include them in on that. Our kids need to know what they're dealing with. We shouldn't be afraid to tell them, and they should be able to say, I have ADHD and this is how it affects me and I need this support. And we can start that very early in middle school. I always like to have my son do, in a school that he was in middle school, they did student-led conferences. So they would actually create a presentation about, this is how these are the classes I'm doing good at. These are the classes I'm struggling in. And this is what I did to help myself. And this is what I think I might need from you, teachers, principals, or whatever. And the parents can play a role in that too, because we were all there. We then went to a high school that didn't offer that. But then I had, his name is Brad. I would have Team Brad meetings where we would bring, he would, help me create kind of a list of what he needed. And we would talk with his teachers about it. I caution you on that some, because you need to make sure your teachers are open to that. Not all teachers are open to that. And hopefully by now they are, but because this was, 6 years ago or so, but in any case, it's really important. I think it comes back to that understanding yourself, understanding what you're dealing with and what supports you might need to help you be the most successful, whether it be school, high school, college, or employment. I have clients who are afraid to tell their employers that they have any kind of disability, and they get very anxious, and it starts to spiral. So it's really important that they feel confident about that.
About them. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And that just kind of segued into my next question for you about the best time for students to create a plan.
Yeah, like I said, middle school. You start in middle school and then you work your way up, because if you're going to college, those students are going to need to take certain classes throughout from 9th grade to 12th grade to prepare them. So these core classes, the English, the math, the science, in order to be able to get into a college, but also being able to have the extracurricular activities that they can put on their resume, the volunteerism that they will need to put on their resumes or applications, to get into college. That can all help them with getting a job as well, because you put that on a resume when you apply for your job. So all of that can start in middle school. And then as far as applying, then, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, we start talking about careers. I mean, you can start talking about careers in the pre-K to 6th grade, career day. Remember career day when we were in those years, and, reading books, that interest them. But then around the 11th grade year is when we really start honing in on the college path, the career path. If it's college, they're going to need to take those SAT, ACT tests, so prepare for those. And then in the senior year, we are actually the summer before the senior year, we're writing essays, they're visiting colleges, we're creating that college list, and then we're hitting the submit in the fall of our senior year. I will tell you, Tammy, that I have experienced that many of my students and their parents wait until like spring of their senior year, and then they decide, oh, I guess we should start thinking about what they're going to do after high school. And that should not be the time. That creates a lot of anxiety. And we really, if possible, should start planning for their transition out of high school way before the spring of their senior year.
So Beth, okay, and that's great information. What if a student is undecided and they're thinking maybe college, but then, maybe the trades, or maybe they don't want the trades. Maybe they're not sure about what they want to do. Then what do you suggest? How do they go about creating a plan for that?
Well, if they're not sure, and if they think they have any interest in going to college, and of course they have the resume to go with that, the classes and the grades, then I say we need to start planning for college, at least start looking at that. I mean, I think research is your friend. You start researching the schools that might be available to them. For a trade, we have Texas State Technical College they're all over the state, but there is one in Waco that I visited, that has a number of trades that you can, electrician, plumbing, automotive, and then, some of the high schools here also offer some of those programs too. So if you have that in your high school, then I say, you might want to try and go that path. But I think it's just a matter of exploration and talking and exploring, and, either come to someone like myself, or the parents could do it themselves, but don't not talk is what I'm trying to say. You know, you need to have these conversations and you need to start planning for that. Don't wait until May of senior year and then try and figure out what you're going to do, because they will be living with you for a while if that's the case. Just because it takes money to live out on your own, right? It takes skills and it takes money. So I'm going to advise that you start early.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, because you've hit all the bases that I've been thinking about here. So what type of resources and where do the students find the resources? Where can they look for these resources?
Well, the internet is a great resource. If they're wondering about careers, there is a website that has a number of videos that offer like explanations on what various careers do. So that one is called, I think it's Career Zoo. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. It's on YouTube. It's called The Career Zoo. There's also a book that's coming out. It's just come out from a good friend of mine, Chris Dendy and Ruth Hughes. They just launched, I want to say the word launch because that's in the title. It's called Ready for Takeoff, Preparing Your Teen with ADHD or LD for College. But it also, oh no, that's not the one, but that is a good book. The one that Chris Dendy and Ruth Hughes put out is Launching into a Young Adult with ADHD, Ready or Not. And it kind of goes through some of the things that we've been talking about, whether it's college or career, employment, whatever. It goes through a lot of those and helps. It's very practical. So I would highly recommend their new book, Launching into Young Adulthood with ADHD, Ready or Not. And then if they're going to college, Elizabeth Hamblett has another book called 7 Steps for Success. And that's always a tried and true resource. But ONET Profiler is another one, another website where you can, explore interest and does some personality testing to help pair you with, various careers that might be good for you. So there's quite a few out there. I mean, there's a few others and I can send those to you and put them on your website if you want. But there's quite a few out there to explore.
Okay, and those are great. And I've not read Ruth and Chris's book, their new book yet.
Yeah.
But I have listened to their presentations, been in conference with them. Excellent. Then and they too have the background and the experience like yourself, personal experience. So tell me, we're going to be wrapping up here in just a few short minutes. Beth, I want you to share with our audience what services, how do people get hold of you? What services can you offer? What's the best way to contact you? And then if you will also type that information into the chat room, that would be great. So when we post this, will be on the YouTube. It's going to go out to all of the mailing audience, and then it will be on YouTube. So
yeah. Here, let me put my I just put that in there. Well, besides college planning, I do help with career counseling, and I provide those career assessments, help write resumes, help do some job searches to that help that go along with the strengths of the student or the client. I do some academic coaching. I've helped with certification exam prep. So I've done some of that as well. But I would say that having this experience of helping not only my son, but his friends and now, various clients from the ages of 17 all the way up into mid 30s. Everyone is different. Every client is different. So there really is no one way. I mean, we can follow a little bit of a step-by-step, but we always are diverted into something else because, they have different needs. And so I try to meet the client where they are, and we go from there. Yeah, so I I just want to let you know that I'm not advocating that college is the right path for everyone. It is for, I would like to say though, that college does give our students that step to a better career and better pay, but it's not for everyone. So I'm here for career counseling as well.
Well, I have just a quick question for you, and I think because this has been asked by another client. So is it normal? Maybe that's not the right word. So when kids they go from high school and then they go to college, okay? College is a big difference. Like you said, they have to rely on those executive function skills. So maybe they've been in college 1-2 years and then they decide to drop out.
Yeah. Well, that I have experience with that with my son. He went to a college that we thought was going to be a great fit for him. They had the support that he needed. Unfortunately, it wasn't. So, and he got into some, there were some things that he needed to mature. So we ended up going to a program that did some cognitive behavior therapy to kind of ease him out of those relationships that were not that great for him. And then after that, he went back into the college scene. That's because he wanted to do it. That was his choice. And I think it's really important that these students have some self-determination skills and the motivation to do it. If they don't, it's really hard. And so it's just a matter of maturing. Some of our kids don't mature until they're 25, 29, or 30. I know that's really hard for a parent to digest, but we just got to keep hanging in there with them and help guiding them to that next step of growth, because that's what it's going to take for some of our kids. Others, smooth sailing. Some take a little longer, but they'll get there. It's that it's the executive functioning.
Executive functioning. Oh, I hear you. I've been there myself.
Yeah.
With my youngest son. And and it took a while, to connect the dots, but when it connected,
it is super important to work towards their strengths and to be realistic. We need to find that those steps that are going to be, or that career or that path that's going to be sustainable and realistic. And that's what I hope to do when I work with my students and clients.
Well, this has been great, Beth. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your time with us. And she's typed in the chat room her contact information that you can see how to get hold of her, her email, and also her website. And like I said, if you want to contact me directly and I can connect you with Beth, that's great, because we do a lot of that. And so I'm thrilled. Thank you again. You have been absolutely wonderful in sharing. And what better time, right, to share this with the spring. We've got the holidays coming up, and great time for students to be thinking about this.
Sure.
And, great time to connect with Beth and maybe do some of this career readiness, kind of probe the area a little bit. Okay.
Right. Well, I'm happy to do a 30-minute consultation and see where it goes from there. Like I said, we can do the career assessments and then we can just see where that lands them.
Oh, that's great.
Well,
Okay.
thank you for what you do, Tammy.
Oh, well,
Really appreciate.
thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, well, it's been our pleasure. Thank you so much, and we will talk later.
Okay.
All right.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Mhm.
Bye.
Bye.